Hello and welcome to Universally Challenged. We do cultural criticism with a biblical perspective. We have Scooter back with us this week.
Yep.
He looks like he's doing good. He's surviving his new job.
Yeah. Just signed an extension, so I'll be there.
Oh, well, there you go. It must not be that bad.
No.
You're okay being up in Oklahoma? They're not razzing you for being from Texas too much? Or
Actually, I'll run into a lot more Oklahoma State fans where I'm at than OU. So, me being an Aggie, it's not that big of a deal anyway. Yeah. Now, for somebody like you who's a Longhorn, that might be a little different.
I'm not a Longhorn. I do. As a child, I kind of picked the Longhorns because it was the state school. Never went to school there, so I don't want to be claiming that. People will be getting me for making up credentials. But I did pick it mainly. I had an uncle that was a big A&M fan. And, just being of the contrary spirit that I am, it's like, you can't beat Texas, I like all the Texas schools. I'll pull for any of them. If Baylor had a chance to go to the national championship and they were playing Texas, I would want Baylor to win the game because I would want the Texas team to be in there. Really pulled for TCU last year. That didn't turn out so hot. I did have a little bit of, I don't want to say hate in my heart, but I was a little upset at A&M when they left the Big 12, but now I guess Texas and Oklahoma are going to join them. So, whatever. If I was going to be consistent with my feelings, I would be mad at Texas and Oklahoma as well. I'm always mad at Oklahoma. Don't worry, that's always there a little bit. I said Texas schools. I pull for Texas schools. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. You see any good movies lately? Did you go see the Barbie movie?
No, I did not.
You did not go see the Barbie movie. I hear it's a bit controversial.
That's what they say, but I'm not quite sure outside of the wokeism that's going on now that's involved. I'm sure there's a lot of sexual innuendo, characters that are questionable as far as their identification and things of that nature.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought about seeing it. We went to see a kids movie. I can't remember which one. Well, I say kids movie. I think we went and saw the Spider-Man animated thing or whatever. It's not really kids, but it's not adult at the same time. But when we saw it, I saw the Barbie trailer. I really don't see too many trailers anymore. I don't watch a lot of commercials, but it did look funny. And I thought, hey, that might be interesting to watch. But I've been hearing it's a lot of feminist tropes in it. I do have one member of my family, an older person who I can't control anymore, went and saw it, and she said it was really good. But the more I hear about it, it sounds like there's a lot of stop the patriarchy type stuff in it. Barbie's always been kind of a feminist thing, I would think, though. I don't remember seeing too many Barbies that are wife and mother Barbies or anything like that. It's all businesswoman Barbie, things like that.
Or Beach Barbie.
Beach Barbie. They say it started out as a German doll. It was actually a call girl doll for men. I don't know anything about that. I did not dig into that. I heard somebody else say it. I don't want to defame them, but it kind of makes sense, just based on Barbie looks like a woman. You take the clothes off, she has womanly things. I mean, they don't go super detailed with it, but you know what I'm saying on that. But yeah, a friend of mine once told me that she had a Barbie that would talk whenever she was a kid. And one of the things it said was, math is hard. And she said to her, yeah, math was hard. It made sense. But I don't think they make that Barbie anymore. It's
probably not in the movie.
No, it's not. Who knows? It could be in there as a joke at the beginning. I didn't watch it. I'm sure it's a feminist thing. I can't hardly go see a new movie anymore because it's so full of just garbage. Most of them are. So take it with a grain of salt. If somebody saw it and they think there's some good stuff in it, send me the message. I want to hear the good stuff about the Barbie movie. The people I've been listening to are trashing it. So
I've heard mixed reviews from people at work.
Oh yeah.
But honestly, I don't even know what's out there to watch right now.
Haven't really watched much in a while. When football season starts, we'll have some stuff to talk about. Plenty of Cowboys stuff going on since they're slated to win the Super Bowl this year.
It's almost
here. Man, to me, it's funny. In July, we're always going to win the Super Bowl. We're always going to win the Super Bowl in July. You were telling me last week, I was talking to you, was there anything in the news you want to talk about? I know you watch news more than I do, and you were interested in this Jason Aldean thing. He has a song out called Try That in a Small Town. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, First off, let me just preface what I'm about to say is I don't listen to country music hardly at all anymore.
I don't at all. I didn't know about it till you told me about it.
Since about the early 2000s, when things started to change and that demographic started to change, the sound started to change, it kind of turned me off. But however, it looks to be, reading in articles, that the sound itself, the lyrics, the music, the feel, the vibe, is starting to go back to a more...
I did notice, I listened to a couple of country music songs because you told me about a couple of them, that they actually try to sound like they're country music singers.
Yeah.
which is intriguing because there for a while it just sounded like pop music.
Yeah. No, it really did. Yeah. And I think that's what's really driving the controversy behind it. The biggest thing was the video. Like, no one had a problem with the song, apparently. No one had a problem with the lyrics. But then several weeks after it was released, the video comes out. Yeah. That's when everything went haywire. And most of it centers around where some of the video was filmed, and maybe all of it, I don't know, but in front of a courthouse there. I believe in Tennessee. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I apologize. But I
think it's in Nashville from what I saw.
A particular courthouse that was a part of a lynching that took place in the late 1920s. Yeah. Okay, now, I find lynching offensible. Yes, and I expect others to find lynching.
We don't go with mob justice. It's not justice at all from do mob justice.
Right. Yeah. But a lot of people were upset. They were thinking maybe this tied into some type of anti-Black Lives Matter thing, trying to downplay police brutality, not focusing on the needs of the black community, whatever you want to throw on there. All the clips that were in the video are actually filmed live, available TV footage. This is nothing that Jason Aldean or anybody that had anything to do with the video came up with to put on there. And not all of it was focused here in America. These are clips from all over the world. Getting to my point, when you come to a small town, there are no words or lyrics that I listened to, and I read through all of them, that even hint at racism. You know, in my view, maybe you see something different.
Do you want to hear one of the accusers? Because
sure.
I think I have a clip of Whoopi talking about it.
Okay, as long as it's not Sheryl Crow, because I'm tired of hearing that one.
See, I didn't know anything about it, and my wife's like, well, there's a whole thing with The View going on where they called him a racist and all this stuff. And it's almost one of those things where it's assumed that if you're a country music artist or you're from the South, that, well, you're a racist automatically. But let's hear what Whoopi had to say here.
Country singer Jason Aldean is getting backlash for the video of his song Not in a Small Town, which critics are saying is racist. It's got racist lyrics and images.
I have a question real quick before we move on. Since when did Whoopi Goldberg become Bill Cosby?
I don't know.
Did you hear? Does it sound like Bill Cosby?
It does. Is she eating something?
No. Whatever. Bill Cosby, upstanding citizen. He's not in jail anymore, so Whoopi can copy him all she wants.
Well, I am glad. I know you're going to play the rest, but I do want to say I am glad that she started out correctly saying there's issues with the video. But now when she gets off into lyrics, that's not. But that's what the issue is.
Yeah.
He talks about life in a small town, and it's different, and he shows these images. He's got folks from the Black Lives Matter movement, and he's talking about people taking care of each other. And I find it so interesting that it never occurred to Jason or the writers that that's what these folks were doing. They were taking care of the people in their town because they didn't like what they saw. Just like you talk about people taking care of each other in small towns. We do the same thing in big towns.
You burn them down?
Hey, they were taking care of their neighbors by stealing big screen TVs from the Walmart. They were, destroying their neighbors' cars, against the police. Let's burn our neighbors' houses to the ground. That's what they do. But let's do some of the lyrics from the song,
okay,
so we can just get an idea of what he's saying here. It says, sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjack an old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. Yeah, it's cool. Well, act a fool. If you cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag, light it up. Yeah. Think you're tough? Well, try that in a small town. Well, so he's going on. He's saying a lot of these things are happening in the big cities where they're burning the cities to the ground. They're rioting. He's saying you won't be able to do that in a small town. He goes on to mention that his granddad gave him a gun. He mentions that they're talking about taking him away, but he's like, good luck. And this is all small town attitude. Mm-hmm. This is really, and this is true.
It is
if
true.
Someone comes down and starts destroying my neighbor's truck, everybody in our neighborhood's going to be out there. We're all going to be armed, and we're going to tell them stop. We're going to call the police.
Yes.
But we're not going to let them hurt anybody.
Yes.
And that wouldn't happen where we are, and that's true. His whole song, and there's some colorful language in it. I'm not going to play the song. I'm sure it's copywritten. I don't want to violate anything, but it's pretty much talking about how people take care of each other. We don't do what they're doing there. Now, I think there is some racist stuff going on here, and I think it's from Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes.
Because somehow she thinks that he's talking about black people. I see nowhere in the song where he mentions a black person. You know what? In my small town, black people live in my small town. Mexican people live in my small town. We all kind of have the same attitude about how we take care of our stuff and we take care of our neighbor's stuff. This is more about the worldview of the people living in conservative America versus the worldview of people living in liberal America. And I watched that video 4 different times. And almost all the riding, I barely saw a black person. I was trying to spot a black person. It was all white people fighting against the cops. It was a white woman spitting a cop's face. The police are fighting with them over something, and it's like 8 white people pulling on the other side of it. It's not like they were showing a lot of black violence in this. And I'm telling you, I've seen these videos. I've seen black violence in these things. But I didn't see it in his video.
Well, the tipping point, too, is when they draw attention to the courthouse. And then they bring up the lynching. Because several videos. Yeah. The Hannah Montana movie was filmed in front of this courthouse.
I saw that, too, where they were talking about there's a courthouse, where there was a lynching at that courthouse that was famous. I'm telling you, if I was in that town, I would not know that happened. Unless there's some marker there telling me that happened. But it's a famous place to shoot. Multi-liberal companies and people have filmed there. I think it was more about the set. I think he was looking at it as a symbol of justice. We have a courthouse. He had an American flag in the background.
Yes.
He's saying these should be our American values, should be what's going on in the small towns.
I was supposed to say, and most small towns embody that.
It's about values. It's about taking care of your neighbors.
Absolutely.
And I'm not promoting country music.
Black, white, doesn't matter the color.
I don't listen to country music. I mean, to be honest, my musical tastes are kind of stuck in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, but past that. And, old country. I like old country, but I really don't listen to music that much, to be honest with you. But I'm not promoting modern country. I'm not saying there's some words in here, that aren't great for your kids to be saying. So I'm not promoting that, but I think what all he's doing is promoting a conservative view and how he would like America to be. And he's saying that small towns exhibit those values where the cities obviously don't, just based on what's happening.
No, and I don't know anything about Jason Aldean, his affiliation to anything.
This might be the only song of his I've ever heard.
And so I'm not going to go out here and say he's some theologian, some Christian or whatever, because I don't know his background. No. I don't know his heart. However, when you listen to this song, since we come from the biblical side of things, when we do our critique, if you want to know what a neighbor is, his song tells you kind of a biblical view of what a neighbor is, what Jesus himself said. And that's part of being a small town. Now, are there certain prejudices that go on anywhere and everywhere, including small towns? Well, sure. Mm-hmm. Are there always some type of little clique? Is there somebody that has a little more? Those things exist no matter where you go. But overall, typically, in my experience in the small towns that I lived in, there is a unity. Yes. It's like, this is ours. You're not going to come in here and do this.
You have community.
Yeah.
And there's going to be pushback if you were to come in here and try to do that. Yeah. And I think his point is in those cities, they don't have guns a lot of times. They can't protect themselves. Mm-hmm. He doesn't make a big point about the gun issue. He does mention it. People know better than to come into areas where people can protect themselves and try to take something from them. In places where they don't have guns, like in England, they don't have guns. They have home invasions all the time. Yeah. 2 or 3 guys get together, knock down the front door, and come in, and they ransack your house, take whatever they want to, do whatever they want to you. Mm-hmm. In areas where people have guns, they don't do that. An old man will run you off with a shotgun. Well, it equalizes it. 3 young thugs aren't going to overwhelm a man with an AR. It ain't going to happen.
No. And yesterday I was going up to Brookshire's to get some shrimp to go on my steak. I was treating myself
yeah,
yesterday. Okay. And a car was pulled over in the middle of the road, basically. I guess it had died.
Yeah.
There was 4 other cars that were pulled up. I saw at least 7 shades of color. I don't know.
Helping out, yeah.
Okay, so to me, that's kind of what.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying. That's what you said, and you put everything with taking care of each other. I'm going to start chasing a rabbit here, so let me get back to.
I get you.
The record sales after this video came out in the controversy were like the most record sales in 1 week for a country music album, and I'm not going to say ever, but they made a point to show how it just skyrocketed. And there's all types of reasons for that and all types of people who would have gone out and bought that. But what I think you see is when a lot of people heard this song, saw the video, and understood what was going on, they were like, yeah, that's my town.
Yeah.
And so I think you see a turning away from some of this wokeism where people are starting to get back to regular, what I call conservative American values, patriotism, being a good neighbor, nuclear family, being able to defend yourself and protect yourself. So,
my understanding is CMT got rid of it after the View started talking about, and there was more people. What's that Sunny woman or whatever? She had some statements to say about it and she actually said the town was the most racist. She's been there to that part. Her dad or somebody was from there. And that it's the most racist place in the world or in the country. She made defamatory statements against this whole state. And this might have been in Georgia, actually, now that we're talking about it. I cannot remember.
I can't either.
I can't remember if it was Nashville
fault.
or if it was in Georgia somewhere. The thing is, Jason Aldean's pushing back, and he's actually got a lawsuit against them saying they defamed him.
And he should.
And that's true. And if they're also costing him money, which they might be making him money as well because the pushback against what they're saying. But his stuff got pulled from CMT. I think people like Blake Shelton, people like that come out and supported him and said they were going to pull stuff from there.
But nobody ever did.
They didn't. But, well, I just know that he has a lawsuit against them, and I think he's going to win it. Because I'm looking at this. He says nothing against any race of people. He says he's talking about ideologies, and they're assuming that because he's talking about people destroying cities and burning stuff to the ground, they're assuming he's talking about black people. She's assuming he's talking about BLM.
That's the
he
whole
never
point.
mentioned that. So in her mind, she associates in the city with black people. That's her racist
That's her
thoughts.
argument. And
yes, that is not his. Whenever you watch that video, and I doubt he picked out the scenes to put in there, whoever put them in there, looks like to me they were over conscientious to make sure they mainly showed white people damaging stuff. And that, I'm telling you, I watched it several times, and I mainly saw white people out there. A little like Antifa type stuff. The worst of the people that go out and try to destroy and bully and cover their faces up so you can't see who they are.
But you look at the Record Sales Act, to me, what that says is...
They say it's been downloaded on YouTube like so many times.
And you're seeing the embodiment of the small town. Old-fashioned, American, conservative. Yeah. When I say conservative, I'm not trying to make you a Republican, okay?
No, I get you. I don't think
those
Republicans
type of
are conservative most of the time nowadays.
Yeah,
anyway.
Showing up, not just in the small town, but you have the people in the city with that same, that same mindset. And so I think the record sales jumping like you did, you saw a lot of people get on board and say, hey, we're for this.
It's worldviews, and we've talked about it. And the small towns still have more of a biblical Christian worldview, and their values are more like the values you would get from the Bible. Mm-hmm. And the cities are more godless. And I guarantee you do the polling, you're going to see where they care more about God and family is going to be in the rural areas in America. But we could do a show every day about crazy things they say on The View.
Yeah.
I mean, these ladies, I could probably do a YouTube channel on them every day, just going through their show and pointing out the ridiculous statements. We know how they are. Every now and again, just like a blind squirrel, they find a nut. And every now and again, Whoopi says something that's even like, oh, yeah, she's stating the obvious here, and it makes sense. But she also goes way crazy the other direction. I don't know too many people that would call Jewish people white people and say they're not victims of racism that still have jobs, but she does. They're just white people hurting other white people. Why do we care about that? Whatever. That's a show for another day, Scooter. That's a show for a show I'll probably never do, by the way, guys. But also, you'd mentioned, since we're in the realm of country music, you'd told me about the Tracy Chapman song, Fast Car. First, I didn't know what you were talking about. Come back, listen to it, and I realized, oh, yeah, I know that song. But Luke Combs, I guess is the guy, remade it. He's a country music singer. He did it exactly the way she did it.
Absolutely.
I don't think he changed it at all. He seems to love the song. He says one of his favorite songs. He's been performing it for years at concerts. He said every time he performs it, the crowd sings with him. And he just really wanted to perform it. Nothing against her. She is a black woman. She's also, I guess, a lesbian. I did not know this until... Is lesbian an okay term to say nowadays?
Well, it's the L, isn't it?
I guess
it better be, or they need to change the alphabet again.
I don't know what correct terminology is. She is a woman that doesn't like men but prefers women. Maybe she's an I or a Q at the end of there. I don't know. I don't know where. I don't know how she identifies. Or
highly talented and very private lady.
I don't know how they identify. I don't know how that works. But anyway, she's a good singer. She had a really good song, 1988, super popular, won awards. 3 Grammys, was way high on the Billboard charts. But who was it? Somebody made a statement saying that he has privilege, that he's doing her song. He shouldn't be doing it because he's not a black lesbian woman, and that she would never get that same recognition if she did that song in country music. Like the song wasn't uber famous to begin with. Just wasn't a country music song. Right? I don't know. Do you know who said that? Who's complaining about it?
I can't give you the name, but she is a member, leader, founder, whatever, of what's called the Black Opry. I just can't think of her name. Maybe you can pull it up, but I think that's where that came from. Saying it's a shame that it took a middleman like white Luke Combs for this to come about.
Well, I don't think we need her name. People can look all that stuff up on their own, but there are people complaining. So she's saying that he is a middleman because he's a white. She uses white, which is a racist. It's not racist to call somebody white. I call black people black because I think that's an appropriate term, and white people white. It's not a bad thing when you say it like that. When you say it, oh, he's a white middleman or whatever. That's kind of you're being a little racist. You're pointing out his race for a reason, right? But my understanding is super popular song in country music, making lots of money. Tracy Chapman's come out and said she's so happy that her audience has broadened.
And she's receiving a lot of the royalties.
She's one of the first black women to ever have a country music hit like that. It's still her song. She wrote it. She has almost all the production rights for it still. They said royalties almost exclusively go to her, where they think she's gotten at least $500,000 in royalties right now. So, if anything, he's benefiting her community. Or I hate that term, community. We're all people created in the image of God. As Christians, we don't divide that stuff up. We know that we're all sons of God. We come through Adam and Eve. We're all related. It's only people that want to divide us and they want to break down the current system we have that put us in different categories like that. And that's what these people are doing.
Yeah, and that's what I took away from this and the Jason Aldean, because if you look at the timing, these are all really came out about the same time the videos were released, because he'd been singing the song forever. But on his album, it was released back in, I think, late April or early May. Yeah. But the video came out, and then all this came about. My point is, I think a little bit of this is trolling, to be quite honest with you. And one of the reasons I believe that is, like you said, people are trying to force this narrative so that they can label however they want to label and try and get away with it. But a lot of people are coming out now and saying, no, this is not correct. This is not right. But I think it's politically motivated too, and you can disagree or agree with me either way. When the left sees what they have in the White House, the overall debacle, the ineptitude, their mindset is, okay, we've got to get the focus off that because we've got an election coming up. Is gas still
$3.39 out there right now? This is Texas, $3.39. And in California, they may be wanting to drive down here and get some gas. I don't know. Well, man, it's amazing now that we got aliens too.
Well, I think that's
I mean,
the
I
whole
lived in
thing from
Texas.
the left.
I know we got aliens. We've had them
I
for.
think this is a troll to try and get the left back on track to, hey, this is what we believe. We're giving up on what we got now, but we need to all come together on all this racism and everything else.
Well, that's what happened before the last election. They were crazily burning cities down.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right
I
before
think this is politically motivated.
Yeah, it's insane. And my daughter was telling me, oh, yeah, they're admitting that there's aliens now. They have alien technology and spaceships and stuff. I said, nah. Nah, that ain't true. I said, look over here. Don't look at the real issues we're having right now. Look at this. Let's keep our focus on some nonsense over here.
The article that is really behind all this came from the Washington Post. I believe the lady's name was Emily Yar. Yeah. Okay. She did a good job of at least bringing in some topics that we could discuss that do have merit. One being the lack of black or black/female or black/gay lesbian representation in country music. Now, if you wanted to have that argument, okay, that's fine, but don't try to bring all this other stuff in with it.
So it was a diversity thing,
pretty much. And if you go back to the 80s when this came out,
yeah,
in the late 80s, early 90s, this song actually became a lesbian anthem.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Okay, so I
didn't even know that she was gay. I did not know.
Well, she's very private. She is uber talented, but she's always been a very private woman.
I like her voice. That's obviously a really great song. Never once played into my thought, is this a black lesbian woman? Never once did that.
Well, and we didn't care.
It was a good product. People liked it.
We didn't care.
Yeah.
I didn't care too much for the song, but the lyrics are great if you read it.
I mean, I like the song. It's one of those things where
I don't like the Luke Combs version, even though it's about the same thing. He's just singing it.
Yeah, I mean, and I never, like I said, I don't listen to country music. First Luke Combs song I ever heard. I think he's got a good sound to him. He sounded like he was a country music singer, which I do like. But we're not here to promote country music. And there's really not much more to say about this.
Oh, can I just throw this in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Talking about gay and all that. We're not anti hate. We're not hate.
I just don't want to have to say it every time. Well, you know what I'm saying?
Just point. This has really nothing to do with anything. I just want to throw it out there. The number one hit song in 1988 was Faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
by George
goodness
Michael.
Gracious.
So,
and
we
didn't
care about his sexual orientation at that time.
I assumed he was straight. I don't know. Whenever I was a kid.
So we didn't care about Chapman's. This has nothing to. My point is, this has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it has nothing to do with. You can't get all over Luke Combs. If you have an issue of diversity and underrepresentation with an industry, then make that your point and let's discuss that. But don't try and make everything anti.
They don't want diversity of ideas. No. They don't want diversity of thought. They just want diversity of skin color and sexual identity. It makes no sense whatsoever.
No, you're right.
Give us a good product that people want. I can't watch a movie anymore because they won't give me a good product. They won't give me a story that's just true, that's universal, that we can all relate to. You can make the character whatever religion you want to, but his struggles should still be the same struggles I have.
Absolutely.
He may deal with them a little bit different because he comes from a different background, but it could be universal and true, and I can enjoy the story. I can't enjoy a story where they preach at me the whole time and tell me how I should be taking care of the environment and how men are horrible and women are awesome. I think women are awesome too. I just don't agree with the men are horrible part. You know what I'm talking about?
Amen.
Anyway, that's where I get my soapbox, Scooter. I'll put it down.
No.
But like I was saying, we've been talking a little bit about lawlessness and what is the law as Christians, you know. We said a couple of weeks ago, we played the whole Martin Sheen thing from West Wing where he went over are you eating shrimp or sell my daughter into slavery? How much money will I get for her? All those things. We heard that argument. If you want to hear it, go back and listen to, I believe it was the Ted Cruz episode where we did that.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever. Go back and listen to that West Wing thing if you want to. I'm sure we've all been approached with this when we start pointing out, well, the Bible says. Nobody likes you to say the Bible says. Even Christians don't like it nowadays. They're free from all that. In their minds, they're free from all that. And so they'll start pointing out, well, you're not following this law. Well, you're not eating, I just saw you eat some shrimp the other day. That shirt, I believe it has polyester and cotton in it. Things like that. They want to point those things out. And we'd mentioned that we don't follow the Old Testament laws, right? And do you have any any insight to that, Scooter, why we wouldn't do that anymore? Or?
Basically, we talked about sanctification. We talked about the purpose of the ceremonial laws, the civil laws. That was to set these people, this covenant people that God had chosen for himself, Israel, apart from the pagan nations around them. Mm-hmm. And he knew that some of these practices that he was going to tell them not to be involved in would tear down the fabric of their society.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we have Christ, and through a same process, we have sanctification as well, to become more like Christ, become more like God. And no matter if the law is moral, ceremonial, civil, it all points to God. So that was the whole purpose, really, of any facet of the law, was to put the emphasis on God, to put our minds on him. Now, the moral law is still applicable to us today. As far as Christ, he used the Ten Commandments, and he elaborated them on them.
Yes.
And so basically, he went back to the greatest commandments. Love God, and I'm just going to paraphrase, love God, love others.
Yeah.
Okay? That's applicable to any and all still today.
Yeah, the commandments were a heart thing. We don't have that heart. But that's what it's supposed to be. When Jesus did the Sermon on the Mount, the law was a law of love. And it was the first part of it was all about loving God and honoring God. The second part of it was how we treat each other. And it's all supposed to be in love. I do think you point out something good. You had the civil law back then that was just for those people. It was for the Jews at the time. R.C. Sproul calls it the proposed law. And it was to prepare a way for Christ. I've heard John MacArthur answer this question before, where why we don't follow those laws. He's kind of speculating here in some of what he's saying, because the Bible doesn't clearly say these things, but I think his speculation was based on scriptural things, where he was talking about the ceremonial law that made their people different from everyone else. It kept the Jews separate from the rest of the world. He said, what happens when you have certain ways you have to clean yourself and you have to sit and eat, and you can only eat particular things? He said, where does a lot of community get built? He said, at the dinner table, he said, you got to eat with people that you have community with. And he said, well, the rest of the world doesn't eat like you. They don't prepare themselves to eat like you. So it's going to keep you isolated from everyone else. And it's going to keep you to be a peculiar, particular people. Jesus couldn't just come out of nowhere.
Exactly.
The way had to be prepared. God had made promises to Adam and Eve to bring someone that would crush the serpent's head. He made promises to Abraham that his seed would come, and he was talking about Jesus, and he brought that through the Jewish people. He brought about Christ. Well, this wasn't going to come just out of the world, out of the pagan world. It had to be a group of people that was set aside special. These prophecies, these laws were all about Jesus. And when he came, he fulfilled these things. We know this.
That's what he said, and that's the important point. That's what the law was for.
But does that mean the law is bad?
No, it's just, like I said, it's just not a requirement as far as a lot of the ceremonial issues. Now, like I said,
the moral law, you're talking the Ten Commandments.
Yes,
when you said that, yeah.
But the moral law is still applicable, because most of our justice, civil and criminal,
well, this is something
can be traced
else
back to it.
That R.C. Sproul would say. He would say that the moral law is an expression of God's own character. It's immutable. Mm-hmm. So God's unchanging. The moral law, the Ten Commandments, are who God is. Mm-hmm. These things, God is love. We know this. The law is loving. These things come out of who God is. So for God to abolish those things are impossible, because this is who God is. But if we go back, we know the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus is talking, he's basically going through the Ten Commandments. And he starts it off in Matthew 5:17. Do not think that I came to abolish the law and the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until it is accomplished. I mean, he's saying not a period, not a comma, none of it is going away, right? Mm-hmm. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. I did not print the rest of it, but I'm pretty sure it says, unless your righteousness succeeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will not see the kingdom of heaven.
Correct.
And to them, the scribes and the Pharisees,
that was it,
kept the law. Mm-hmm. Well, then Jesus is going to go on through the Sermon on the Mount. I'm not capable of preaching the Sermon on the Mount to y'all guys. That would, man, goodness gracious. That I love the Sermon on the Mount. Please go read it. Matthew 5, 6, he's telling what the law really is. And it really is about love. And we talked about honoring God, the first part of it, and then how we treat each other. So the law is a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
And he's saying if you teach somebody to not follow this, then you're going to be the least in the kingdom of heaven. You need to keep those things and teach those things. And whenever you're in Christ, you're free to do that. Mm-hmm. We see the law as a burden. And you look at what the psalmist said. They said, with all my heart I sought you. Do not let me stray from your commandments. Your word I have treasured in my heart, that I may not sin against you. This was, his heart was, he loves the commandments of God because they're good. People that want to say they're bad, that's just the evil in them that resists the goodness of the law. Other than that, we did want to, I don't know if we totally addressed the fact the ceremonial law isn't. We're going to go with whatever in the New Testament that's reiterated, and Jesus fulfilled the law totally.
Oh, yeah.
All that civil ceremonial law, he completed all that stuff.
Absolutely. And we talk about clean and unclean. You can bring that in.
Peter in Acts 10:15, Peter had the vision. Blanket was put out and it had all the animals on it that they couldn't eat, and it said, take and eat. Yeah. And he said that he wouldn't eat. He's never eaten anything unclean, and he won't eat anything unclean. And the voice again said a second time, what God has cleansed, no longer consider defiled. A voice from heaven, he received by revelation that these things are not bad anymore. 9 of the 10 moral laws are repeated in the New Testament except for keeping the Sabbath. Yeah. And Jesus is our Sabbath rest. Mm-hmm. We're resting in him. We no longer have to work for salvation because the work was completed by Christ. And so we don't have to keep the Sabbath. Now, as Christians, traditionally, we go to church on Sunday because that was the day Jesus was resurrected from the dead, and that's when we celebrate.
And the Bible even says so that it was made for man.
Yes.
Man wasn't made for that day. So even back then, they took the Sabbath out of context.
Yeah.
And
they would put laws around laws to try to hold different things up.
One burden on top of another.
Jesus talked about the traditions of man. He said, you follow traditions of man. They weren't following the actual law. But we're not beholden to any of the Old Testament laws that are for the Jews. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't mean that if some of them are restated, in Romans, he talks about homosexuality being a sin. Well, we know it's a sin, but he didn't reiterate to go around and stone the homosexuals. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? So we're not burdened to I have to pick up a stone and start stoning somebody that's in sin. But it is clear that that's reiterated. That's not a law that went away. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about circumcision, and Galatians talks a lot about that. The Judaizers come in, and they're telling the people that are Christians, that are in Christ, that they need to be circumcised.
Correct.
Because that's how the Jewish people did it. I'm going to start with Galatians 3:10. For as many as are of the works of the law are under a curse. For it is written, cursed is everyone who does not abide by all things written in the book of the law to do them. Now that no one is justified by the law before God is evident. For the righteous shall live by faith. However, the law is not of faith. Rather, he who does them shall live by them. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law. So the law is described as a curse here. Mm-hmm. Jesus is telling us that it's a good thing, but he's saying that it's a curse to us. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law, having become a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree, in order that Christ Jesus, the blessing of Abraham, might come to the Gentiles, so that we would receive the promise of Spirit through faith. So the law is a curse to us. Because we can look at the law, we can see our sin in the law. Paul makes this point throughout Romans, and we know that we don't live up to it. Because the law, there is no salvation through the law. The law is
only
good.
Condemnation.
The law is good. The law is our standard for how we should live. We should love God with all our heart, mind, and strength. Mm-hmm. But those are required. Yes. That's required. You have to love God with all your heart, mind, and strength. And we don't do that. Mm-hmm. We look at the law, those are required. You can't break the smallest little bit of it. You're not good enough. Jesus did these things. The law pointed to him. He is from Abraham. It was the promise given to Abraham. The law was in the middle of it. It was an intermediary. we need Christ. It points to our need for Christ. And at the end of this, it says, before faith came, we were held in custody under the law. The law's got, you know what custody under the law means? You're basically imprisoned by it, right?
Yeah.
Being shut up for the coming faith to be revealed. Therefore, the law has become a tutor unto Christ, so that we may be justified by faith. The law brings you to Jesus. That is the point of the law. God's law is good. His moral law, the 10 Commandments that we're talking about, those things are still good. We should want to keep those things. That's how we should live. And we are free to do that now. Before it was a burden on us, we were in jail. We were jailed by the law, and we were heading to hell. Jesus came. He completed it. We have faith in him, and now we're justified by faith. Abraham was justified by faith before the law. We're justified by faith after the law.
That's correct.
So
that's correct. Yeah.
Am I clear as mud here? I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess I'll know whenever I listen back to it.
No, the points that need to be made, I think, have been made. The law was given for a reason. All the laws.
Yeah.
They had the purpose in the Old Testament. Some of them do not have that purpose here for us because Christ has accomplished the law.
Yes.
Which is why he said, not only that, we have the Spirit and truth.
Yes.
And so just read Christ's sayings on some of the Old Testament, like you have heard it say, but I tell you this. So like I said, he even elaborates on that.
Yeah, that's the Sermon on the Mount. Go back and read that. It's very, especially, you need to go through it with the glasses of he's talking about the law. He's pointing out every one, and he's showing you the truth of the law and how it's supposed to be expressed in love.
Exactly. And how it all
and I know people get super kind of, they can take that and get a little super squishy with it. Everything's okay, just love. You know, there's ditches you can fall into on either side of this, but the Sermon on the Mount's beautiful. It applies to us, and when you read it, you do feel free. You feel like you're free from the burden of the law to live in Christ. So.
Yeah, and I have an issue, like we've talked about before, with the West Wing, and we hear this at work and from other people all the time. They go back to the Old Testament, take things completely out of context. They don't understand it because they don't want to take the time to understand it. Yeah. They miss the whole purpose of the law, and you actually said it better than I did. When you think about the ceremonial laws, the civil laws, on top of the moral law, the beauty of how they point to Christ. Yes. That was their purpose.
Yes.
And they miss that. They don't see the application of this back then and how that was making way. God's making preparation for his son. So once his son has come and he's fulfilled all that.
You needed that history. You needed, that much history to lead to Christ. It pointed, he couldn't just show up and say, hey, I'm your Savior with no context.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There was a context. The people were waiting on him. The whole time they knew our Redeemer's coming. Someone's going to save us. Now, they expected him in a little bit different context than he came. But, he came then. He's coming again. Prepare yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even when you go back to the law, don't miss the point that the law was given out of the mercy and the love of God, right? This was given after the huge sin of building the golden calf and all of that. So even at that point, God shows his love and his mercy. Not just for that covenant people, but for all who will trust him as Lord and Christ, and Savior.
And he showed us, and he went on to show how he was utterly different from us, and he's holy, and we're not holy.
That's the whole point. It's the holiness.
It all falls in there. We went through all those. We're in Chronicles now, so we covered all that in Sunday school. You did a good job covering it. We did a good job covering it.
Thank you.
I think, unless you got anything else.
No, that's good. Pretty much.
Okay, we're going to tell you, go out and witness to people. And if you've already witnessed to somebody, witness to somebody else.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. And until next time, keep styling and profiling. UC Cast